They say falling in love is easy, but for girls like me, love wasn't even on the syllabus. My name is Zoya Rahmani. I grew up in the narrow bylanes of Old Lucknow, in a deeply traditional Muslim household. Since I turned 13, I've worn a niqab, my face covered, my opinions quieter than whispers. For the world, I was invisible. For my family, I was a duty, a daughter, nothing more. No phones, no photos, no Facebook, definitely no boys. So when I got into college, on scholarship, it felt like Allah's little miracle. But college wasn't ready for me. Or maybe I wasn't ready for college. They stared, they smirked, some laughed, but one person didn't. Kabir Singh Singhania. Tall, loud, from Sikh family, from Delhi, with dimples deeper than sense. He looked at me like I was art, like he'd been waiting his whole life just to spot someone like me. He called me Miss Eyes the first time we spoke. I thought he was mocking me, but when he smiled, it was genuine, soft. We were paired for a group project. I tried to keep it cold, formal, but Kabir? He was chaos. He talked about his favorite food, cricket matches, how his dadi once got banned from a gurudwara for stealing prasad, but I know he was just trying to make me laugh. And he made me laugh. Quietly at first, then louder. One rainy afternoon, we sat outside the library. He turned to me and said, "You're like the rain, quiet, but you change everything when you arrive." I felt something stir inside me, something terrifying, something beautiful. We grew closer. Late-night study calls, on his old number which he gave me, of course. Secret laughter in the canteen, his eyes, they always searched mine like they were trying to find the whole universe inside. And maybe he did, but I reminded myself. He was a Sikh boy from Delhi, I was a Muslim girl from Lucknow. My family would never agree, so I kept my feelings locked behind my niqab until the day he broke the lock. He stood outside the chemistry lab and said, "Zoya, I love you," just like that. As if love was allowed in my story. I ran. I didn't return to college for a week. I cried. I prayed. I questioned everything. Until one night, my ummi sat beside me. She touched my head and softly said, "What is it, Medijan?" And I broke. I told her everything. About Kabir, his silly jokes, his stubborn kindness, how he made me feel like I mattered. She was quiet for a long time. Then she whispered, "Your Abu will never agree, but I know that look in your eyes. It's the same look I had when I first met your father." Her voice cracked, and I fought the world for him. With trembling courage, I returned to college. He was in the canteen, stabbing a samosa like it had insulted his ancestors. I walked up, lowered my scarf just a little. "Kabir, I think I love you too." He froze, then yelled, "Are you serious?" I nodded. He stood on the bench, shouting to the heavens, "Boys and girls, she loves me! I can die now!" Everyone stared. I dragged him down. He grinned. "Sorry, couldn't help it." But love stories like ours don't end in giggles. When our families met, it was war. My Abu's face turned stone cold. A Sikh boy? No, not in this lifetime. Kabir's father was shocked too. A girl who covers her face? What will our relatives say? Kabir fought back. I cried. We begged, pleaded, but nothing changed. One night, Abu locked the front door and said to me, "End it, before I do." I remember staring at my phone that night, tears wetting my scarf. I messaged Kabir. "I'm sorry, I can't fight anymore. Please forget me." He sent one last reply. "I'll wait. Even if you forget me, Zoya, I'll remember for both of us." I stopped smiling. I went through college like a ghost. My niqab didn't just hide my face, it hid my heartbreak. Abu never spoke about it again. But Ummi, she saw the hollowness in my eyes. Every time she brought me chai, her hands trembled. And then one evening, Abu called me to the living room. He didn't ask, he announced, You're getting married next month. The boy is decent, from a good family. It's done." My ears rang. I wanted to scream, to fall at his feet and beg, but all I did was nod. Because daughters like me, we don't get to choose. We just obey. Kabir found out. I don't know how, but he did. The day before my nikah, he came home. Yes, to my house. He folded his hands, looked my father in the eye and said, "Uncle, I love Zoya. I want to marry her. Not steal her, not shame you, just marry her, with your blessing." My Abu didn't even let him finish. He stood up and said coldly, "A Sikh boy will never be welcome in this house. This is our pride, our honor. You want to be the cause of our ruin?" Kabir's voice cracked. "But Zoya and I, we respect each other. Isn't that what matters?" Before Abu could shout, Kabir's father stepped forward. "Enough." His eyes were full of shame, not anger. He looked at Kabir and said quietly, "Let's go home, beta. We didn't come here to humiliate ourselves." Kabir's shoulders dropped. He didn't fight back this time. He just looked at me. One last time. And I looked away. The next morning I became someone's wife. A man I had only seen once, briefly during Rishta. He seemed kind, but he wasn't Kabir. He didn't know that I prefer my chai without sugar, or that I count raindrops when I'm nervous, or that my favorite part of the library was the second-floor window where Kabir once said I looked like poetry trapped in glass. He didn't know any of that, and I didn't want him to, because that part of me was already buried with Kabir. 6 months later. They say time heals everything. Whoever said that never had to sleep beside someone who resented them every night. My husband found out. Maybe someone told him. Maybe he saw it in my silence. Maybe. My eyes still whispered Kabir's name. One evening after dinner he asked coldly, "Who was he?" I froze. He laughed bitterly. "Girls like you hide behind niqabs but fall in love like film heroines, huh?" He didn't wait for an answer. Didn't want one. From that day on, he changed. He stopped talking to me in public. Started throwing taunts in private. Maybe I should have married someone untouched. Must be nice having a lover before marriage and a husband after. Do you think of him when you pray? Each word stung, but I stayed quiet. Because if I defended myself, he'd only get crueler. So I cried. Quietly. Alone. Every single night. Sometimes muffling sobs with my pillow. Sometimes just staring at the ceiling, begging Allah for peace or punishment. Anything but this hollow survival. After 6 months, I went to visit my family. The moment I stepped into our old house, the smell of Ammi's cooking, the sound of the clock ticking, everything felt like a ghost from a different life. But I didn't smile. I didn't speak. Not to Ammi, not to Abu, not to my younger sister who clung to my dupatta. Because I had no courage, no voice. I was tired of holding back tears, tired of pretending I was happy, tired of carrying everyone's pride like a noose around my neck. They kept asking, "Zoya, are you okay?" I nodded. Because how do you tell the people who gave you away that they gave you to a cage, that they broke you, and then called it a marriage? So I stayed silent, like I had all my life. Now, my niqab doesn't just cover my face. It hides my pain, my past, my poems, my prayers. I wear it like armor. Because if I remove it, I'm scared my soul will fall apart. When I returned to my husband's home, something had shifted, or maybe it had always been broken, and I was just now seeing it clearly. That night, I saw him. In the balcony, bottle in one hand, cursing under his breath. Drunk. His eyes bloodshot. His tongue bitter. He stumbled inside, reeking of alcohol. I stepped back instinctively. but it was too late. "Why are you always so quiet?" he slurred. "Playing the victim again?" I tried to walk away. He grabbed my arm. Tight. I gasped. "Let me go!" Then, slap. A sound I had never heard before, except in my nightmares. My cheek burned, but my soul shattered. He walked off like nothing happened, and I stood there, frozen, tears streaming silently. That was the moment. I knew. If I don't leave now, I'll never survive this. At 3:47 a.m., I packed a small bag, a scarf, some cash Ummi had once secretly slipped into my purse, a notebook where I used to scribble poems. And I ran. No hijab, no destination, just fear, but also freedom. I ran through the dark lanes, avoiding shadows, avoiding people. I didn't stop running until I reached the train station. Mumbai. The only place I'd heard about where people disappear or rebuild. I bought a general ticket, window seat. I was alone. Again. But this time, I chose it. The city was loud, alien, fast, like it didn't care where I came from or why I was crying, and maybe that was a blessing. But my legs trembled. I had nowhere to go. No idea where I'd sleep, no one to trust. As I stepped out of the station, crossing the road with blurred vision, a loud horn ripped through the air. Headlights flashed in my face. A car. I froze. Raised one hand to shield my eyes, the other to cover my face. I thought, he won't stop. Not in this city. But he did. Tires screeched. People yelled. The car stopped just inches away. I opened my eyes slowly, and I saw him. The driver's door opened, and there he stood. Kabir. Same messy hair, same wide eyes, same disbelief. Zoya? He looked like he'd seen a ghost, and maybe he had. Because the girl he loved was no longer the girl he remembered. And this was the first time he saw me without hijab. Still, he know I'm Zoya. His Zoya. It's been 1 year. Still he remember me. And yet somehow, in that moment, he still looked at me like I was art. I couldn't hold it anymore. The fear, the pain, the year I lost. I dropped my bag on the road and ran to him. "Kabir," I choked. My voice was barely a whisper. "Where were you?" And I crashed into him. I held him like he was the only air I had left. "I missed you so much," I sobbed into his shirt. His arms slowly wrapped around me. Tight, warm, safe. Like home. "Please, don't leave me again," I begged, my voice shaking. For a moment, we both stood still, in the middle of Mumbai chaos. Cars honking, people yelling, but we were a silence within the storm. He didn't ask questions. He just said softly, "Come home." His house was small, cozy, smelled like old books and a life he built without me. He gave me his sister's clothes, let me shower, made me ginger tea. But I barely spoke. Because something inside me still whispered, "I'm married. I'm broken. Why would he still love me?" So I stayed silent. I watched him from the corner of my eye as he typed on his laptop, stole glances, and cooked for me like he'd done it 100 times in his dreams. But I couldn't meet his gaze, because in my head all I kept thinking was, I'm not the same Zoya. I belong to someone else now. He deserves someone whole. So I kept my mouth shut, even though my heart screamed every time he was near. Later that night, the room was quiet. Only the ticking of the clock and the ache in my chest filled the silence. Kabir walked in holding a cup of warm milk. He sat beside me on the couch, but this time, closer than ever. Our shoulders brushed. He didn't say anything for a while. Then, softly, so softly I almost didn't hear it. Zoya. His voice trembled. I never stopped loving you. I looked at him, eyes wide. Not for a day. Not for a minute. He exhaled a shaky breath. You asked me where I was? He laughed bitterly. Zoya, I was stuck in that last message you sent me. Every single day, please forget me. I tried. God knows I tried. His eyes were glassy now. But I couldn't. He leaned in. Because how do you forget the only person who ever made you feel like home? And then, his forehead touched mine. His breath mingled with mine. So close. So warm. Our lips brushed. Just a whisper. Not a kiss. A memory, a longing, and I panicked. I pulled back suddenly. Kabir, no! I shook my head. I'm married! His body stiffened. Silence again. But then I looked into his eyes and whispered, when he found out about you, he changed. Kabir's lips parted slightly. Confused. Hurt. What do you mean? I swallowed hard. He started hating me, saying I was impure, that I was shameful. He called me names. Every night, Kabir, I cried myself to sleep. I took a shaky breath and my voice cracked. He slapped me. Kabir's expression shattered, his jaw clenched, his fists tightened, eyes burning with rage and guilt. He hit you? He growled. And before I could speak, he stood up pacing. Because of me? Zoya, no. No, 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 he muttered, guilt consuming him. I'm going to kill that. I got up and caught his wrist. Kabir, I ran away. He turned to me, stunned. I left. I don't want that life. I'm going to divorce him. That's when he broke. He didn't say a word. He just hugged me tightly, desperately. You're safe now, he whispered into my hair. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Ever again. And for the first time in years, I believed him. Kabir held my hand gently as we stood outside the familiar gate, my childhood home, the same door where I once stood as a shy girl hiding behind her niqab. Now I stood there as a woman broken by betrayal, held up only by the man who never stopped loving me. Abu opened the door. His eyes locked onto Kabir, then me, then our hands. His face turned cold. Zoya? His voice was sharp. What is he doing here? Before I could speak, Kabir stepped forward, voice steady but respectful. I brought her home, sir, because she has no one else. Abu's jaw clenched. You had no right. She ran away. Kabir interrupted, firm now, because her husband was beating her. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Abu froze. What? He whispered. His eyes turned to me, slowly, searching. Zoya, is this true? Tears spilled from my eyes, my lips trembled. I nodded. For 1 year, Abu, I lived in hell, but I didn't say anything. I was ashamed. I didn't want to bring you more shame. Abu staggered back slightly, as if my silence had hit him harder than the truth. I want a divorce, I said quietly. Please help me, Abu. I can't go back. He said nothing, but then he placed a trembling hand on my head. I will help you, Beti. Not because of what people say, but because you are my daughter first. In the court, I stood tall. My soon-to-be ex-husband scoffed across the table. I didn't even want a wife who runs off with her lover, he sneered. I broke. Right there in the courtroom, in front of strangers, in front of Kabir, in front of Abu, I cried. All the pain, all the years, all the silent screams. Kabir didn't care who was watching. He walked up and hugged me, held me like I was something precious. My Abu stood behind us, silent, watching. That evening, Kabir got up to leave. He didn't say much, just smiled softly at Abu. "Thank you for helping her, sir. I know you still don't approve. I understand. I'll go." He began to turn away, and then Abu's voice stopped him. "Kabir?" Kabir froze, slowly turned back. Abu looked at him long and hard, and then, "Will you marry my daughter?" The room went still. I gasped. Kabir stared in disbelief. "Sir, are you—" Abu's eyes were soft now. "You brought her home. You didn't hide. You didn't touch her until she asked for help. You stood beside her in court. What more can a father ask for?" Kabir's eyes welled up. He looked at me, and I, finally, smiled through my tears. Kabir stood frozen after my father's words. His throat choked. His eyes shimmered. He looked at me, the girl he had waited for, cried for, prayed for. And then he whispered, voice trembling, "Yes, yes, sir, with all my heart." And for the first time in years, Kabir cried. Not out of pain, but relief. His Zoya, me, I was finally coming home. And this time, forever. When Kabir told his family, they were stunned. His mother gasped, then smiled through her tears. Our son got his Zoya back. His dadi, old and feisty, kissed his forehead. You always were stubborn, Putter, but this time, it brought someone back who was meant to be yours. They began wedding preparations with open hearts and open arms. No judgment, no bitterness, just joy. Because their son had fought the world, waited through the years, and finally, fate had returned his love. There were no loud drums, no flashy lights, just two souls, two families, and the quiet, sacred sound of Kubul Hai, Kubul Hai, Kubul Hai. I wore white, with gold thread, simple, pure, stunning. My niqab now open, my eyes still the most beautiful thing about myself. I know he must be thinking this, because he couldn't stop smiling. He looked at me like I was a miracle. And as we sat beside each other, hands tied in a silk dupatta, hearts already tied by destiny. Everyone cried. Even Abu. He placed my hand in Kabir's and whispered, "Take care of my daughter. She's never said much, but she's felt too much." Kabir nodded. "She's safe now, I promise." That night, after the guests had left and the lights had dimmed, I stood quietly at the window, looking at the moon. Kabir came up behind me, wrapped his arms around me. "You okay?" he whispered. I turned around. "I'm not used to happiness," I said softly, "but I want to be. With you." He smiled, rested his forehead on mine. "Then we'll learn it together, one day at a time." I was once invisible, but love, real love, made me feel seen. And now, finally, I could see myself, too. At wedding night, the room smelled of fresh jasmine and rose water. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands trembling lightly as they rested on my lap. My bridal veil slid slightly, revealing just the curve of my cheek, glowing from shyness, not makeup. The door creaked softly. Kabir entered, gently shutting it behind him. He stood still for a moment, drinking in the sight of me. His wife, finally. "You look," he whispered, taking a breath, "like a prayer I didn't know how to ask for." My heart fluttered. I kept my gaze low, fingers nervously twisting the edge of my dupatta. He walked toward me slowly, like I was made of light. "May I sit?" he asked softly. I gave a tiny nod. He sat beside me, keeping just enough space to let me breathe. He didn't touch me yet. He didn't need to. His presence alone wrapped around me like warmth. I looked up, finally meeting his eyes, those same eyes that once waited outside chemistry labs and library steps. "Are you nervous?" he asked. I gave a small smile. A little. He gently reached forward and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. his fingers brushing my cheek. I closed my eyes for a second, not in fear but in quiet surrender. "We'll go slow," he said, voice like velvet. "I don't want to touch you like you're mine. I want to touch you like you're you. Fragile, powerful, precious." My throat tightened, tears pricked my lashes, not from pain this time, but from being seen, heard, respected. He brought my hand to his lips and kissed it, not rushed, not desperate, just reverent. I whispered, "Kabir, I don't know what to do." He smiled. "You don't have to do anything. Just be with me. Let me love you. Gently." The night unfolds like poetry. He leaned in slowly, slow enough for me to stop him if I needed to. Our lips met, soft, feather-light, just a whisper of a kiss. It lingered. I trembled under his touch, not from fear, but from emotion too big for words. His hand found my back, holding me close, but never too tight. I pressed my forehead to his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Steady, calm, home. And when I whispered, "I trust you," he held me tighter, not as a man claiming a woman, but as a lover, protecting her soul. That night wasn't about passion, it was about reclamation, about two hearts healing, together. In a world that never gave Zoya space to exist fully, Kabir didn't just make room for her. He built her a world, one where she could finally breathe.